Hey everyone, before we get started with the podcast today, I wanted to tell you about a little addiction that I have, which is putting on mastermind events for marketers all over the world. In 2022, we did it in Victoria, British Columbia, down at the marina on the coast, where we brought together about 50 amazing marketers and entrepreneurs together for 2 days of masterminding and elite experiences and all sorts of fun stuff. We went to Las Vegas last year and had an absolutely epic event. And this year, September 18th and 19th, we're returning to our roots and inviting DTC listeners from around the world to join us in Victoria, British Columbia for 2 days of an absolutely incredible experience. We're bringing together some speakers from the past and a lot of new ones, including Andrew Wilkinson, international business icon from Tiny. We've got Nick Shackelford to tell us all about his Breeze story, as well as Kevin Gould from Glamnetic about his $50 million year and what's come after that, as well as Brock Mamoser from Frost Buddy. Really excited about his talk on TikTok Shops and how he's grown to a $30 million brand. This event is all about helping brand owners in our audiences get from where they are today to where they want to go, whether that's from 7 figures to 8 figures to 9 or beyond. We're going to have the people at this event. We're going to have the content at this event. And we're going to have the experiences at this event that lock in these concepts for you. Best case in point is one of our speakers, Drew Archiolo, who's coming from Victory Gear, who came to our event in 2022, took a notebook full of notes on all of the talks and all the connections that he made, went out and turned Victory Gear from a middling, unprofitable 7-figure brand to a profitable $20 million powerhouse just 2 years later. Obviously, there were a lot of reasons for that, but he definitely credits what he learned at C-Suite Mastermind as a big part of this. So if you want to replicate that experience, you can go to events.directtoconsumer.co. We only have 50 seats available. We have it's about halfway filled already just from being 2 weeks of being launched. So don't wait. This is a major FOMO event. You don't want to miss out on it. We're going to do a few previews in the coming weeks of some of the speakers. We're not going to give away too much because we want you to come to Victoria and have this amazing experience with us. I hope you can make it, and on with the show.
I've worked with a lot of big brands as an agency, and I've worked in a big brand as an exec. Big companies are buying up everything. The beauty is they're steamships. We want to be a speedboat. That's the one thing that small brands, they won't have the budget, they won't have the manpower, they won't have the buying power, but they can react and they can be fleet of foot. And that's our biggest asset, and we have to use it. If we try and go fight the same fight as the big dogs, we're going to get the shit kicked out of us in every which way. We're just trying to do it slightly different. We're just trying to be a bit more rock and roll.
Wondering what 100 influencers talking about your brand could do to your bottom line? Meet Sorrel, the influencer platform that brands are using to get a 5 to 7x median ROAS on their influencer spend. As ad costs rise, it's time to build robust marketing moats with authentic creator partnerships. Sorrel automates and simplifies the entire process from finding influencers to contacting them, shipping products, and turning them into affiliates. Sorrel's G2 rating is 4.8, and brands are loving their customer happiness team that will help you set things up from scratch even if you have no experience with influencers. Ready for a simpler, more effective approach to influencer marketing? DTC Podcast listeners enjoy a special offer. Double the trial length for free at no annual commitment. Start today at getsorrel.com/champion/DTC-newsletter. And now for something a little different. We don't often chat with liquor companies here on the D2C podcast, but today we're talking with Duncan Frew from Wolfie's, the whiskey of Rod Stewart.
Whiskey of Rockstar Whiskey.
Rockstar Whiskey. Can you give me the origin story of Wolfie's?
Well, I've been in booze forever. Rod and I have been boozing buddies over our love of Glasgow Celtic football team. And got incredibly pissed one night drinking whiskey. And I never thought I was going to work with a celebrity. It was never really on the cards. And he started talking about the Faces and Led Zeppelin driving motorbikes through the Chateau Marmont. And it was just brilliant. It was just, this is amazing. And we were talking about whiskey at the same time. And funnily enough, my stories about Scottish whiskey weren't as interesting as his stories about smashing things up in the Playboy Mansion in the 70s. And we were sort of looking at it and going, well, but he's Scottish, but Scottish whiskey's amazing and it's a really good quality and it's quite twee. So how can we just do exactly what you said there and just throw it into a bottle and just have a bit of fun and disrupt the whiskey market in Scotland slightly. We thought it was fucking great. Sorry, mind my language. Bleep. We thought it was a great idea, and but said let's wake up sober tomorrow and see if we want to do it. And woke up in the morning. We both text each other saying let's rock and roll. And 40 hours later, we started creating a whiskey.
Unbelievable. So you'd been in the whiskey space, you said, for quite a long time before this. What was your sort of flagship project before this one?
So when I was 18, I started my first company. I was sick of working in restaurants and bars for like £4 an hour. So built a wooden bar out of a kitchen work surface and started. This was in 2004. I started using the yellow pages. Jesus. And by the end of university, we were doing the guts of a dozen to 15 events a week for like law firms and car garages and stuff. Anyone that wanted a mobile bar turned up to serve drinks. And then we started working with all the Red Bull for 3 months out of university, which was amazing. And then fast forward 13 years, we were the biggest drinks marketing company in the UK. And I also own bars and restaurants in Scotland. We sold that company to a massive PLC called C&C Group, who were insane to buy it, and then even more insane to make me their CMO, commercial marketing director, with zero corporate experience. So you can imagine I loved it in some ways and hated it in some ways, but it was an interesting experience. So I'd worked as an agency, as the brand owner, and we also own bars and restaurants. So we kind of did everything. And then the next phase was to actually own our own brands. So that's how this crazy project started about 9 months ago.
So let's rock and roll. How did you go about it from there? I guess you had tons of connections in the space. I'm curious, how did you think about the branding?
So basically, for me, if you're going to create your own brand, with loads of experience, we'd seen people completely make an arse of it, and we made learnings of a lot of some amazing projects. If a celebrity's involved, there's two ways of doing it. One, you could just call it Rod Stewart whiskey and put a crap liquid in a crap bottle and sell thousands of it to the fans, but it'll never really go anywhere else. Or what you can do is utilize the audience and the awareness piece and the credibility around it, but you need to back it up with something pretty good. So on the branding, we wanted, like, Rod Stewart's can I swear in this?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Rod Stewart's a fucking rascal. Do you know what I mean? He's just, he's a gentleman rascal. Do you know what I mean? He's the kind of guy that if we go out for dinner, he'll stand up when my wife comes back from the bathroom, but then I'll get the salt off him, he's taking the lid off it, or he'll tell me stories about, but I mean, the Holiday Inn in the 1970s at the Faces where they trashed it. So we wanted to kind of package up that rascally kind of vibe. And also, I mean, I always joke to him, I said, you're a bit of an old wolf. And that's where Wolfie's kind of came into the zone. And then we wanted to kind of create this character, a bit like in the 70s to me, I wasn't there, but every time Rod talks about it, I get fucking pissed off because I want to be there when he's telling these stories. Yeah. It's like, that's amazing, but I really fucking wish I was born.
I was just thinking of that the other day, of just like what it's like for life for our kids now and on their devices, and as you go further back, how sort of wild and raw things would have been.
When Rod tells stories now, he's like, we did a show in Dublin on Sunday, and the entire crowd's got their phones up, just taking video of it, and he was like, early 70s of face. I mean, it's just a very different time. So we created this character, and Wolfie's, all of our thoughts and process was, obviously we're going to use Rod at the start to amplify the brand and give us that awareness. But our long-term brand plan is sort of twofold. One is to be the proper rock and roll whiskey, Scottish whiskey. Trying in our marketing. But what I love about Stranger Things, I like to digress when I tell stories, but Stranger Things made the 80s cool for a younger generation. Suddenly Kate Bush is number one. And I feel that 70s rock and roll vibe, if it's told in the right way, it's probably not told as much because it was so mental. It was so sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And we can't really talk much about the sex or drugs aspect. But obviously we've got the older demographic with Rod. If you go to a lot of concerts, it's amazing. There's still kind of very broad spectrum from probably kind of 25 to 85. But the plan as well is we want to be a bit like, I want us to be like the Nike of the booze world, where Rod's are Michael Jordan, but we're already working with like Warner Music, who's Rod's record label, to identify in South Korea or in Brazil, younger bands or artists that we can plug into as well. So everything's not just on Rod. Wolfie's is the rock star, Rod's just one of the owners.
He's the big bad wolf. Like it's the logo is very reminiscent of some of the early animations I've seen for like the big bad wolf in a way, right?
Yeah, just that kind of slightly cheeky, a bit suggestive wink to it. A bit of fun. I always like that. I mean, if any time I've worked in brands, you got to create your universe. I kind of feel it's a bit like Disney are very, very good at it. They create amazing content and amazing stories, and then they monetize it through live experience and merchandise and product. We've got to entertain, and I think it's really easy to fall in the trap of just constantly saying buy, 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 when you're actually, and we're still trying to get better at it. Is just trying to tell stories or trying to entertain and bring people into the universe that you want to create. But it's easy saying it. It's much harder doing it.
So how many years are you into it now?
Less than a year.
Less than a year. And I think I just saw a note that you're already in 400 Tesco's. Like how has Rod really been like a golden key in opening some of those doors early?
Well, we launched, so we spent 2 years in the brand, iterations of the design, the bottle shape. We did huge amounts of market research to make it really stand out. We did about 40 liquid tastings. I'm going to show you. No one's ever seen this photo. I'm going to show you our celebration photo when we decided on the liquids. This was us when we flew back from Las Vegas to LA. But that was us celebrating the liquid. Absolutely.
Just pants down.
Drunk as skunks. Well, we teamed up with the company Loch Lomond Distillery, who are an amazing distillery in Scotland. Yep. And we asked them, we said, can you just send us unbranded samples with our tasting notes and what we want, but different spectrums, and let's just try some stuff out. We made it closer and closer and kept doing new rounds, and then we had the final 6, and we got a bottle of each. And we said in the 3 weeks when he had the Vegas residency, let's just see which one we drink the most of. And one of them we completely polished off in like 2 nights.
The same one.
Yeah. So
is it peaty? Describe the flavor. Describe the flavor profile to a whiskey novice.
It's incredibly smooth. We purposely made it incredibly smooth.
Yeah.
Because when you've got when you've got a celebrity involved, you're going to get his fan base buying into it. It's always going to happen. And as I said, it's a good launch pad in many ways. But at the same time, it gives us access to a lot of places. So I said there's a touch of peat to it. But I mean, we were drinking Rockstar martinis, which is basically our take on porn star martinis the other day. And my wife, who's naturally not a Scottish whiskey drinker, she's probably scared of it. I think she smashed about half a dozen of them and was in a terrible state. But no, we launched in June, end of June in the UK and end of July. Our initial plan was to do DTC only to kind of see what we had, because supply chain for glass and everything. And the website crashed within 7 seconds with our unbreakable servers that this really expensive British agency said would never break, and they crashed, and it was just a disaster. So we got back up and running very quickly. And then what happened was kind of strange, was Loch Lomond were inundated with B2B customers, so like Tesco or distributors in Poland. So we've had to pivot really quickly because we hadn't even really built an infrastructure. We had the bones of a team. We had freelancers and people we've worked with for ages helping us. And now we're the guts of 9-10 months on, and we're selling into 23 countries now. So in Japan, we're in 200 Liquor Mountain stores, on the Nobu cocktail menu. In the UK, 400 Tesco's, the Ritz, Gleneagles, 40. I mean, so it's been amazing. It's been amazing. But from a standing still start to where we are now, it's been bonkers. It's been absolutely
bonkers. What can you say about your progress with revenue so far? Like what can you say about your sales?
Basically, year one, we're looking. Well, this is the thing. We are forecasting 150 to 200,000 bottles year one, but you've got places like Germany that have just launched a month ago, and they ran out in 3 days because we started DTC as they're trying to open up distribution in traditional bricks and mortar accounts. But go on DTC first. The fans, probably a lot of them, will buy up the stock, and then you're out of stock for a month until we get more out there. So Europe's a bit easier, but Japan, when they ordered the guts of 2,000 bottles in March, sold out in 2 days, and we're still waiting on stock to get back out there. So 2024 is going to be a very fragmented year. Basically, our kind of ambition is to build confidence with our distributors, because I don't blame them. If I'm a distributor, a brand new product, you've got no idea how it's going to sell, so you're not going to order 50,000 bottles. So they're all. Thankfully now we've got a lot of these case studies. Every new customer's ordering, every new market's ordering more than the early adopters. But then we've got places like France, for example. They were an early adopter. They started with about 60 cavistes in France, and now we're forecasting will be in the guts of 900 stores by October. Every caviste to date within 4 months is repeat ordered 4 times, and I think that's what's more important to me than revenue or overall sales. It's repeat purchase, and what frequency of repeat purchase is in a very tight timeline, because we then know that it's pull through, which is more important to me. And every market is very different. America is incredibly tough, pay to play, very saturated with that celebrity. So you've got to be really careful in America, because it could be a race to the bottom if you just pour money into it.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a bit of a blueprint with celebrity liquor brands, and in the early days it was, there were so many that were like, I remember George Clooney's brand, and you mentioned pull through, which was a term which makes a lot of sense. People are buying it again. And I guess the other thing in any retail environment is pickup. Like, who's picking it up off the shelf? Why are they picking it up? So I'm curious, is it, looking at the brand, it's not instantly noticeable that it's Rod Stewart's brand in a way. So how are you describing, like, what makes it gets picked up in off shelves?
Well, that's funny, because that was our biggest problem. I mean, orders, basically Tesco, for example, they placed an order. They were telling us they're going to buy 1,500 bottles to start. And then this was on the Monday, I think. They wanted it by the Thursday. And then the order came through to Loch Lomond, and they'd ordered the guts of 9,000 bottles. It was so quick that we didn't have time. We have neck collars with Rod on it, because as much of our brand is built to be long-term longevity without being Rod Stewart whiskey, you still need that initial presence, especially when you're one of 600 spirit brands on a shelf. So it's things like that. I mean, and if they want it on Thursday, they're getting it on Thursday. I mean, that's the kind of deal.
Oh man, you need a lock of Rod Stewart's hair available with every purchase, and it just like simulation Rod Stewart hair, just a lock on it would be. Oh, people would love it.
Someone actually came to us to sell Rod Stewart to see if we wanted Wolfie's condoms, because we're telling about sort of rock and roll nature. And I think one of the guys in the band said, "I'm sure I've got a used one from the 70s we could probably auction off." But I think that, it's stuff. I mean, we want people to enjoy it. I could give you all the sales bullshit. It's one goal at the San Francisco Spirit Awards. We're delighted with that. We know it's a good liquid. But fundamentally, our marketing moving forward is, obviously we're still so young. We're a baby. Is we just want to have a fucking laugh, have a bit of fun, and people enjoy it. Stick on your face, stick on rock and roll, stick on Black Sabbath, and just enjoy it with your pals and have a few drinks. But it's the way it's kind of grown so quickly. It's kind of gone with our control. Because once you're selling it to so many markets so quickly, you've got distributors. Then it's. If you'd asked me a year ago how many countries we'd be selling in within 10 months, I'd have told you a couple, 2 or 3. I would never have thought this.
Take me back to the launch, because when you launch this product, Rod Stewart, I guess, has a mailing list. But talk about how and I've seen your socials, which features him heavily. But when you launched, how did you launch it for maximum impact with his endorsement?
I like to when I do DTC launch, I always like to be a bit like a striptease. You never show your full
Monty
from go. So we try to just. I remember. Do you remember movies like Cloverfield? Remember that movie Cloverfield? Yep. And it was like guerrilla marches, stunts and stuff. That's like the gold standard. It's putting wee nuggets out there. It was. There's an old Rod LP with his face in a whiskey glass. Funnily enough, so we recreated that. People thought we were opening restaurants, and just people guessing within the fan community. We obviously utilised database, his social media. What we found with Rod's audience as well, though, is it's very interesting. They're very much Facebook users compared to Instagram. There's things like in TikTok you can't promote alcohol, even though a lot of them do. So we as I said, our kind of initial plan was go out to the fan base to see what we had, and then we'd invest in the brand in the right way and build it. But that was, the rug was pulled with our feet within 2 minutes. Just 72 hours. Heinemann, who are one of the biggest duty-free companies in the world, they were one of the first to get in touch. I've just seen that they've got their investor deck, basically their company updates gone out to the market, And fucking Wolfies and we've got this big stand and in Hamburg just now. They've stuck that in as one of the key points in their Vestas deck, and you're going, what the fuck is going on? Do you know what I mean? It's nuts.
People are piggybacking.
But it's great. So I mean, this
Yeah.
big financial deck, and suddenly Wolfies is mentioning it because that's our stand in Hamburg right now.
Yeah.
So you can't. I mean, normally we would be very disciplined and would have a 6-month plan, and our story is a case of fucking scrambling, every day scrambling to keep up, to make sure you're not making an arse of it, to realize, are we using Rod too much? Because our plan was we need to maximize Rod in the first 12 to 18 months to get the awareness out there, get people trying it, because that's the most important thing. If they like it, they'll repurchase it, and then we can start expanding our range or expanding our audience by that rock and roll Nike vibe I was talking to. We've had to do all that almost immediately. That's why when I was in the corporate world for that small periods, part of my earnout, every decision took 6 months.
Yeah.
But right now, I mean, the day after my earnout finished, I was back to being self-employed again, and I love it because you're going to make a complete dick of a few things, but as long as you don't do it again, you learn from it, then you just keep crashing on.
Your display that you had there in store, can you talk about your game plan for supporting retail with marketing? Obviously, you've got the marketing on the product itself, the sleeve on the liquor, and then are you organizing that, or are the liquor stores putting that together?
All of us, we do everything.
So talk about your ground game when it comes to how you get the display, like how you choose how you're going to do that.
So probably, I mean, if I break it down per channel, so e-com, our e-com has actually been, we've just brought someone on, thankfully, who understands what we want, and they've come on board full-time with us, or are coming on board full-time with us. We almost put D2C on the back burner because the B2B stuff was blowing up, and as you said, it takes a lot longer to organise point of sale and activations and samplings than it does to, maybe not your D2C plan, but we almost had to put D2C in the back burner, and now we're picking it back up. But for that, it's entertainment. We have to have that Disney style model, whenever, but of entertainment first. Otherwise, we're just selling. in the on trade, I mean, really really cool bars are unlikely to have point of sale. We've got neons and pubs. My bar in the West End of Glasgow has got a big Wolfie's mural on it. The tour's on just now in Europe, so next week we're all through Scandinavia, then Germany, then Holland, we're just in Slovakia. So all the shows we have, like, very, as you said, very, very discreet branding. But we could also turn around to a customer and say, would you like, in Poland, for example, would you like your logo on that in front of the 25,000 people there? In store, we've got freestanding units, neck collars, win a trip to Vegas going on just now. Which we're working with the guys at Live Nation and Caesars Palace. We hide signed labels throughout accounts. So like Tesco, for example, we hid signed labels on like 80 accounts, and there was just a freaking scramble to go into that. We're working with influencers for the first time. We're kind of at the stage now we want to start working with influencers. But again, it's a very funny world, and we're going to make some mistakes. I got the list through, and 80% of the list are people I'd never imagined Wolfies would be part of. But I'm just a bit like, let's try it out. Let's do 50% of people we'd never work with, 50% of people we put a lot of time and effort into choosing to work with. And I bet what will happen is some of the 50% do really well for us, sales-wise. I think what we need to be really protective of is whatever marketing we do needs to be different, needs to be funky, needs to be relevant for the brand long term. So the perfect example, we've got a big trade show coming up, and not to spill the beans, but all these other brands will spend hundreds of thousands of pounds, these big elaborate stands. We're going to, I have loads of people on it. Our stand's going to be a trash hotel room and nobody on it, and say, sorry guys, we were too hungover to turn up. Because we don't have the budget these guys have. So we've got to box smart. We've got to fight our own fight, and fight in a different way to try and stand out.
It's very meta. I've been there on more than one occasion, and I've never actually fully embraced it to that level of being that. I've been very hungover at trade shows, but very well done.
So that's our game plan, and I think once you're comfortable, and once more importantly the team, because when we had to bring on board full-time guys real quick, I mean, to get good talent, you're looking at 6 months plus. We're only 9 months old and we're already building teams. So we've been really lucky the team we've got on early have embraced the psychology of it, of let's not put a big snazzy trade show stand in, let's put a trash hotel room in with a duck flying around in the corner. Which if you look at Scottish whiskey is very different. But in that scenario, why not try and be slightly outlandish? And we'll see where it lands us. We'll see if we get into trouble or whatever happens. But we've got to create our world and live in it and live and breathe it.
And it's yeah, like when was the last time a new whiskey brand like broke through? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's been in Canada, I don't know if it's just I guess there's a few I don't even know, whiskey brands that have gotten popular, but it's like it's a very established category. So you kind of do need to think differently maybe to break into it.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, it's still so early. We're still so early that I don't know if we have. We've certainly not broken through yet. We've managed to get to a lot of markets. But even in Tesco, for example, I think we're the only non-big boy. We were looking at all the other brands, and they're all owned by Diageo or Bacardi or Pernod Ricard or big hundreds of £1 million turnover companies or £1 billion companies. And I think we're the only independent, essentially, that's kind of blagging it in the world of whiskey. And the thing is, we have to remain respectful to the whiskey. We're not, as I said, we're just trying to do it slightly different. We're just trying to be a bit more rock and roll.
What are the restrictions around advertising? Like, I'm actually unfamiliar with the restrictions around advertising on platforms like Meta and Google for alcohol.
On Meta, well, again, I think it's anything. It's a common sense. I mean, just don't write this stuff's going to make you fucking get really pissed off or anything. I mean, if we're advertising, the restrictions are more country based. So in Sweden or Norway, you're really restricting what you can say because they're monopoly governments, the same as Canada. I mean, when we're doing advertising, we're trying out different stuff now. One, we've got Rod content, we've got cocktail making, basically different styles of how we make it, and a bit about the brand. And that we're at testing stage of that. So, but no, we don't put anything mentally outlandish online because. At the same time, it's tongue in cheek. I mean, Wolfie's is not brash and loud and crude and rude. It's gentleman. It's a gentleman rock star that's just a bit of a rascal. And I think that word rascal kind of sums it up, that we are a bit like Rod, for example. He was a bit of a boy. He's probably he's obviously been married a few times, but my gran, for example, would say, "Oh, he's just a rascal." I mean, it's not. And that perfectly sums up what we want to be is quietly confident, polite, but a bit of a rascal. We'll also let her hair down a bit.
Does the world need more rascals?
Fucking 100%. 100%.
It does. It really does. It's The world is not rascally enough.
Well, this year, every year we like to have, in my household, what is this year of? This year was a year of frights. So, I mean, I think I'm hiding behind doors, frightening my wife daily, and it's excellent fun. And it's just having a bit of a giggle. It's just having a bit of fun. No, not being rude or offensive or crude, but it's just being a bit of a rascal.
What do you have any industry hot takes in the either hospitality, alcohol space? Any hot takes about like what other brands are not thinking about or doing wrong?
I think the biggest, I've worked with a lot of big brands as an agency, and I've worked in a big brand as an exec in the sort of board level kind of vibe. But it was. Big companies are buying up everything. The beauty is they're steamships. We want to be a speedboat, and I think there is some of the bigger brands now trying to have wee sort of incubation companies and smaller subdivisions, but they still get swallowed up, and then the bureaucracy and the speed of reaction. And I think that's the one thing that small brands, they won't have the budget, they won't have the manpower, they won't have the buying power, but they can react and they can be fleet of foot. I mean, that's our biggest asset, and we have to use it because if we try and fight the same fight as the big dogs, we're going to get the shit kicked out of us in every which way. And that's the thing as well. There's so many. I mean, that's a story in itself that we are probably the only independent whiskey in the supermarket at Tesco just now. But right now, we're 9 months old. We've got a lot of stories. We're trying to. If you want to try and tell all the stories, you're just going to confuse everyone.
Which means you're on their radar. Which makes me wonder, like, is your eventual hope that a company like this might be acquired by one of these big conglomerates? And what do you want to do to maximize the value, if so?
Well, I've been bought by a big company before, and it was excellent, but it was also I mean, the company I bought lost its. When we went from 45 staff to 4 staff in a year after I left, so it just loses the soul of it. We're so young in the journey, and I think when Rod gives us lots of exposure, but I mean, the people that I've met in the music industry, for example, it's just incredible, and I would never have got access to that. And then there's more opportunities opening up. I mean, a guy the other day came to us saying, "Can we open up Wolfie's Rascal House bars?" And you're like, "Well, one step at a time here." If someone came in and offered you stupid money 2, 3, 4, or 5 years down the line, of course you're looking at it. But we've poured our life into this brand for the last 3 years, and we've got to just keep going. So.
What's your? I was just like, ultimately, what's your best advice for selling whiskey?
It's again, every market is very different. I mean, I was in Singapore in March, and we launched in Asia in March, and you're going into nightclubs or bars full of 25-year-olds, and they're drinking it by the bottle. So on that way, it's we're now getting we've got these flight. This one's actually for Calvin Harris. It's going out, so these flight cases made.
Oh, cool.
Inside it. So we've got these made, and these are all going out to Asia because, again, need a point of difference in the UK. People either drink really high end malt or they drink value whiskey. So we're it's a bit of a harder sell in the UK, and to break through, just been Scotland's the home of whiskey, obviously. So in some ways, I'm not really answering your question, but now we're selling so many markets. We've got to think globally and that we're selling so far, but locally and how it's actually going to translate. So that's why in America, a lot of people I think are scared, or North America, a lot of people are scared of Scottish whiskey unless they're whiskey drinkers. So if we're in Vegas after a show, we're not serving it neat to people. We're serving it in an appletini, or we're serving it in a way that they never normally drink it, and they're going, "Geez, that's actually quite nice," and you're going, "Well, great." So. It's just giving it to someone in a different way, because as soon as you go Scottish whiskey, oh no, that's my dad drank. Or
thinking global and being receptive to each market, that makes a lot of sense. What's your best advice for drinking whiskey?
Whatever way you want.
How do you drink it?
Well, my throat's a bit sore, so I'm probably going to have a neat whiskey after this. But
lovely.
Going out with Rod's like going out with the cast of Sex and the City. We're drinking Appletinis and Wolfie's Cosmos, because that's the way he likes to drink it. That's always the way. The one thing with Rod that we can't, he's been fantastic. I speak to him daily. Like tomorrow, we're going to his son's wedding in Croatia. So it's a family. It's kind of our family business and the Stewarts. But the one thing we can't get him to change is for the last 55 years, he's had 2 Bacardis and Coke before going on stage. And for ages, I hated it when he went, "I'm just having a Bacardi Coke." Then I went, "Do you know what? But this is the thing. People with celebrity brands are like, of course he's going to drink other stuff. He doesn't just drink Wolfie, so he doesn't have an IV drip of Wolfie's connected to him." Honestly, people, whichever way you want. We had a great tea in London about 6 months ago that went to the Ritz Hotel, which is this. It's a 5-star beyond hotel. And this amazing bartender called Michele, who's one of the best bartenders in the world, made this incredible cocktail with smoke and ambience and theatre, and it was like 25 quid a cocktail. And then we drove back, fair enough, in Rod's Lamborghini, back to the Cock Inn, which was his local, and they were all just drinking it neat. And you're like, there's such a contrast.
Yeah.
But that's what we say to people is, obviously here's some suggestions, but just make what you want and drink what you want. Just enjoy it.
Duncan, thanks for coming on the podcast. It's great.
Eric, my pleasure. Enjoy your shawarma.
I will enjoy your wedding.
Thanks, buddy. All the best.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at direct-to-consumer, all one word.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.